A lot of athletes these days think they're above the law.
You're out of order! You're out of order! The whole trial is out of order!
Let's get an inside look at the legal side of sports.
Rick Calzada is our legal expert. He's one of the partners of My Law Solution over in Winter Park. Rick is my lawyer, so let My Law Solution be your law solution, whether you're fighting the bank to save your home from foreclosure, whether you're a defendant in a criminal matter, like, say, a DUI, or in need of a bankruptcy to protect your assets. My Law Solution is adept at every facet of the law. Give them a call at 407-843-2222 or online at mylawsolution.com. Rick, welcome to the show. I'm proud Rick went to the Orlando City game this past weekend and didn't leave early.
I was there, and I stayed to the end.
Of course, one of the reasons he didn't leave early is because he was in a club-level seat, right?
I was lucky enough to be in a club-level seat, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. Probably having a little Chablis up there, maybe a little Brie. Huh?
We definitely had something.
All right, Rick, let's start out with the Erin Andrews case. We talked about it extensively last week. Erin Andrews is awarded $55 million by a jury. First of all, this amount is probably not going to stand, right?
Well, it's going to be appealed. There's no doubt about it. There's going to be an appeal filed, and there's going to be a process to try to whittle it down to something a little more manageable for the defendants.
Mm-hmm. Last week, I think it was your take that $75 million, which is what she was originally asking for, was exorbitant. Is $55 million exorbitant?
It sure sounds very, very high for a non-physical injury type situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's interesting is I'm always interested in what the jury says,
mm-hmm.
right? So whenever there's a trial, I try to see the jury interviews afterwards. And what was interesting to me was how they got to the damages number. And so some of the jurors said, this is a $10 million situation. Others said, no, $75 million is a reasonable number here. So you have this huge spread between what is reasonable, for this type of case, and they settled, somewhere in the middle, which is typically what juries do. They kind of, merge their different views together and they reach a consensus. And in this case, it was $55 million, which sounds a little bit high.
You mean the same jurors that were hugging Andrews after the verdict and asking for an autograph?
Last week you said, if it was somebody else, would it be different? And I said, no, it's different because Erin Andrews and them hugging and getting interviews and selfies afterwards proves it.
Right?
It does.
I wanted to ask you this. Now, the stalker, actually, he has to pay $26 million. That's what the jury said that he has to pay. Now, he's obviously not going to ever be able to pay that.
Never.
Because he's bankrupt and in prison right now. Or actually, I don't know if he's bankrupt, but he's in prison and broke.
Yeah.
When he gets out...
He's been released and he's out now, but you're right, he's broke.
Okay, so he's out of prison now.
Yes.
All right, so how does he go about... Do they garnish his wages, or if he has wages?
They could. I mean, they're going to garnish pennies on the dollar because who's going to hire a convicted felon? So he's not going to have some great job.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly Erin Andrews' attorneys can turn that judgment into a garnishment against his bank accounts, his other assets, if he had stocks, bonds, real property, and certainly his wages from whatever employment he could procure.
Now, can he declare bankruptcy and get out of the settlement?
Absolutely not.
No?
No, not for an intentional action like this. So, if you and I got in a fight out here and I hurt you and you couldn't work for 6 months, I can't file a bankruptcy and say you get nothing. Not for an intentional action like that.
Not even if I went to My Law Solution, you guys wouldn't be able to do that.
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right, speaking of sexual-type trials, the Hulk Hogan trial against the website Gawker is underway. The basic facts of the case are that Hulk Hogan is seeking $100 million because he says he was completely humiliated by a secretly recorded sex tape published by Gawker. Hogan said the publication of the 1 minute, 41 second video of him having consensual sex with the wife of his then best friend, radio shock jock Bubba the Love Sponge, that has devastated his personal and professional life. All right, that's the facts of the case. Could this actually be a groundbreaking case?
It's going to be a ground. It's
already is?
It is. It's the case of first impression. And however this, shakes out, it's going to make, a precedent going forward. You've got a situation here. I like to compare this with the Erin Andrews case.
Okay.
Right? Because last week you played the audio of her testifying and breaking down. Mm-hmm. Okay? It was very compelling testimony. She's likable. Mm-hmm. The jury liked her. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if the jury in the Hulk Hogan case will have the same feelings for him, because I've watched some of his testimony.
Not likable?
Really not likable. He was inconsistent on some things. He created this dynamic, this duality between himself, the person, and Hulk Hogan, the character, and that he could take artistic license to talk about Hulk Hogan's sex life, but not his personal sex life. And it was odd. It was a strange way. It was like, I'm going to pick and choose what's good for me for this case, but if it's bad for me, no, that's my personal self, and that person is not, fair game. So the jury's going to have a time struggling with that, and it's not going to like him like they liked Erin Andrews. Okay,
now how this sex tape got out. Now, Bubba the Love Sponge, who's a shock jock, all right? This was his wife that Hulk Hogan was having consensual sex with. I guess Bubba's the Love Sponge taped this?
That is, they haven't said who taped it.
Yeah.
But the sure understanding is that somebody pushed a button on a camera in that room that he had installed. So the fairest, assumption there is that he knew about it and he pushed the button.
Okay, why isn't Bubba the Love Sponge on the hook for more of this?
Well, he was named as a defendant in this case. So he was named along with his wife. Now,
but didn't they settle that portion of it?
They've been dismissed out of it. So Hulk Hogan reached an agreement with both of those individuals, and they are no longer part of this lawsuit.
But I was also reading, before they reached this settlement with Bubba and his wife, Bubba was saying that Hulk knew he was being taped and, this and that. And now that they've reached this settlement, Bubba's saying, no. Hulk,
right. So that's a defense. His defense was that it was consensual, that Hulk Hogan knew he was being taped. But if you look at the video, it doesn't appear that either of the two participants knew they were being taped. If you knew you were being taped, you take a glance every once in a while towards the camera, right? It happens all the time with individuals that are being taped. They look. It wasn't shown, okay? And so, therefore, the understanding is that he did not know, and he would have never consented to this.
Okay, so if Hulk knew there were cameras in the house, all right, it's still not legal for Gawker to air this, right?
This is why it's a precedent-setting case, because Gawker's position is that because in the past Hulk Hogan talked about his sex life, that this video can be aired. But Hulk Hogan didn't consent to the video being taken and didn't consent to it being broadcast. And that's the big difference. So
talking about your sex life is a little different than showing a video.
Right. And think about the Pandora's box that opened. So any celebrity, any person could be asked a question about, do you have sex? Yes, I do. And then they broadcast a tape. Well, you brought it up. You said you have sex, and we just showed a tape of you. Yeah, but it was in my bedroom, and I thought I was in my privacy with another individual. So that's where Gawker has a problem here. Gawker has a problem because a bedroom is considered sacrosanct and private. And when you start breaking down those barriers, then truly everything is on the table. And certainly that is not what we intended with the First Amendment on these type of issues. Everything cannot be on the table. There has to be some limit.
Why did Gawker even air this then? I mean, this could drive them out of business if they lose this lawsuit.
So one of the issues that Hulk Hogan was trying to bring up was that they made money off of this. Mm-hmm. Okay? And Gawker's position has been, no. Well, we put this, there is no advertising. I guess it's like you can't view this at work, so no advertisers will pay for that. So Hulk Hogan's position is that, no, this was to drive clicks.
Yeah.
And clicks are an indirect way of generating revenue.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
There's no doubt about it.
Right?
Anybody who advertises on the internet knows that clicks are a way of getting, advertising dollars.
Okay, quick listener question from Larry, all right? I got in an accident last month at a dangerous intersection where there have been multiple accidents over the last few months, but law enforcement has yet to remedy the issue of cars turning left in front of oncoming traffic that is coming from my subdivision. I have been having some medical issues due to this accident. Can I sue the city or the county or whoever is in charge of the traffic lights?
Yeah, so it potentially yes, because I had a case many years ago where there was construction and they created a different lane, and the lane was 2 inches too high, and a motorcyclist came by, caught it, flipped, severely injured.
Mm-hmm.
Same type of scenario here. So if you know there's a dangerous situation, okay, the city has a duty to mitigate that. Now, you have to prove that it's dangerous, and you have to prove that the city knows about it. And so if those two things were shown to be true, then, yeah, you'd have a claim.
But doesn't the city have something called sovereign immunity?
That would cap it. That would cap it to a certain amount, but they'd still be liable.
Gotcha. Rick Calzada, he's the best in the business. My Law Solution is your law solution. Rick works for, he's my lawyer. He does the best work of anybody in this city. You can give him a call at 407-843-2222 or online at mylawsolution.com. Rick, we always appreciate our Wednesday meetings with you.
Have a fantastic week. Take care.